It's Macy's Friends and Family with our biggest savings on everything you need to get ready for the holidays. Like an extra 30% off brands that rarely go on sale with your coupon or Macy's card. And take 15% off fragrances, skincare, makeup, and more great beauty gift ideas. Going on now at Macy's. Plus, get contact-free curbside pickup or pickup in store today. Details at Macys.com/pickup. Savings off regular sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.
I haven't really woken up until I've had my McDonald's breakfast deal. And I know this is true because before breakfast, I put my phone in the refrigerator and couldn't find the keys that were already in my hand.
Nothing gets the morning going like the first sip of an iced coffee. Get any size and any flavor for 99 cents until 11 a.m. Price and participation may vary.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
You are listening to We Saw the Devil, an investigative and conversational true crime podcast that deep dives into fascinating criminal cases that are solved, unsolved, or ongoing. From America's Lori Vallow to Germany's Armin Meiwes, we examine and discuss the world's most shocking cases. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to follow us online. Check us out at WeSawTheDevil.com and We Saw the Devil on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't forget, you can become part of the show by backing us on Patreon. Hello everyone, you are listening to We Saw the Devil. This is Robin, and welcome to our Halloween 2021 episode. It was a really difficult decision to determine which case I would cover for this episode. Should I do a list? Should I cover a Halloween-based crime? What was I going to do? It came down to two particular cases. I'm actually going to do this one for this episode and then follow up with the other, which is a surprise, next week on Tuesday. This episode is actually one that I covered for our Patreon patrons, and it's to me, one of the most brutal crime sprees to have ever taken place. It's just one of those cases that sticks with you, and if you were one of the unlucky souls back in the mid-2000s that happened to stumble across this video online because the crime itself was recorded, then you know exactly what I am referring to. This is the case, better known to most people as the video, 3 Guys, 1 Hammer. But to others, the case is actually known as the Dnepropetrovsk Maniacs, which took place in Ukraine. So before we get into that, let's just go over a little bit of housekeeping. First, you can find our website at WeSawTheDevil.com. From there, you can find us across all of our social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, as well as our Patreon. If you are interested in backing the show financially and you really dig it, you can find that there as well. Also, don't forget to go to WSDLove.com. There, you can basically, if you like free shit, you can get free shit. All you have to do is go there, fill out a quick 20-second questionnaire, and you are entered into a drawing. At the end of the month, I will pick one person and send them a true crime gift as a thank you. If you decide to leave a review and leave a 5-star review on whatever platform it is that you're listening to us, you get an extra entry for that month. And obviously, you can submit every single month. Also, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't, our previous episode was mine and Brittany's dramatic reading of Chad Daybell's really embarrassing and cringy attempt at erotica that he wrote up and sent to Lori Vallow. It was basically a story of how he met her, fictionalized, kind of. And it was just absolutely insane. But your commentary and the outreach, like pouring of support and comments, it has me rolling. It is sending me. So thank you guys so much for listening. I'm so glad that you enjoyed that. Brittany has received a lot of messages and feedback on her chapter 3. And honestly, if you guys are into it, we may actually continue with kind of the ghostwriting theme as the case keeps going and have some more tricks up our sleeve for you there too, if you guys would be interested in that. So let's go ahead and get into this case. It's very rare that I can say that a true crime case changed my life. As someone who's always been fascinated by humanity and the psychology behind heinous crimes, particularly heinous crimes, I became familiar with all the well-known ones. I read everything I could on serial killers and true crime in my teen years. Dahmer, Gacy, Bundy, Jack the Ripper. I read everything that I could. In 7th grade, I did a computer programming project on Jack the Ripper. At the time, I was actually going to a really far-right Christian private school, and no, they did not appreciate my PowerPoint presentation at all. My parents were older and more or less completely technologically challenged, so I was pretty much left to my own devices on the internet as a teenager. I discovered eBaum's World, Best Gore, and a host of other sites that showed real-life carnage, murder, and devastation. I was fascinated and disgusted by the dark side of humanity. I found the contrast of what we were taught as children. The world is such a beautiful place, one love, one world, juxtaposed against images of crime scenes and serial killers and mass murderers to be super fascinating. And the more I read about serial killers and true crime, especially beginning with Jack the Ripper, I realized that many crime scene photos were also uploaded onto the internet. And when I was in my early 20s, my friends and I always shared viral links and stories with one another. And one day I received an email from a friend and there was a link and all the message said was, "You really don't want to watch this." So naturally, guys, I clicked play. And this video is the single thing in my life that I wish that I could unsee. And I only watched about 8 seconds of it. And this is the story of the Dnepropetrovsk Maniacs. And for the sake of not having to say that crazy word over and over and over again, we will just refer to them from here on out as the Maniacs. In the early 1990s, Viktor Sayenko and Alexander Hanza were best childhood friends. They literally met as babies because their mothers were also best friends. They were good students and loving children by all accounts. Igor Suprunyuk moved to their small Ukrainian village of Dnepropetrovsk as a small child, and then all three boys became inseparable from the 3rd grade forward. So we have Viktor, Alexander, and Igor. With the addition of Igor, Alexander and Viktor's grades began to fall. By the time they reached middle school, their behaviors changed at home as well. Igor, as reported by teachers, was incredibly introverted and withdrawn. However, when no one was watching and he was fully unsupervised, he would pick fights and get into constant trouble. The boys' first encounter with law enforcement was when they were in the 5th grade, and they once had the police called on them for throwing large rocks at a train and then also at an overpass over passing cars. Sayenko and Suprunyuk were terribly afraid of being bullied because they were quiet and meek in almost all social situations. In order to try to overcome this, the boys wanted to, quote, confront as many of their fears as they could. And one of these was heights. They would go up to one of their 14th floor apartments and dangle over the railings as an attempt to overcome their fear of heights. Apparently, this worked, and so they started seeking out other experiences to help them with this. Alexander Hanza was the meekest of the three. He didn't want to fight, and he could not stand the sight of blood. And it was reported during their later trial that he was so scared of hurting a living creature that he wouldn't even give his kitten a bath because he was too scared of burning her. And how did the other two boys decide to aid Hanza in getting over this fear? By torturing neighborhood dogs and cats. And I will not go into the detail on this, but suffice it to say, it is the worst case of animal torture and abuse that I have ever heard in my entire life. It makes Don't Fuck with the Cats look like a Disney movie in comparison. Absolutely not. And because they recorded much of the actual torture on video, one particular heinous video was shown in court, and it actually involved them torturing a kitten to death over the course of an hour. So let's just leave that there, that they were really into animal torture, estimated by police and their own admission that there were hundreds of victims. By the time the three of them were in their late teens, they were more or less a small gang at that point. They would commit robberies, burglaries, bully, and beat up other students in their school. They had a brush with the law when they were around 17 years old, that time for pulling a boy off of a bicycle, beating and robbing him. Naturally, they were going places in life, so after they graduated high school, they held menial jobs. Alexander Hanza did food work and construction. Sayenko worked as a security guard, and Suprunyuk drove a green Daewoo as an unlicensed taxi. Where, guess what? Having an unlicensed taxi, unlicensed, keyword, made it easy to rob passengers for quick and easy cash. Suprunyuk would get a rider. Usually one of the other boys would hop in or already be there. They would beat and rob the person and then pawn their belongings at one of the many local pawn shops. They also became more cruel and violent in these attacks, so much so that after one robbery incident, Hanza never participated in another event and was like, nope, I'm out. And so this is where Alexander Hanza basically exits this little trio. On June 25th, 2007, the first two of an eventual 21 known murders would take place. 33-year-old Katerina Ylchenko was walking home from a friend's house after enjoying a quiet tea party. Viktor and Igor were slowly walking behind her, and they were holding a hammer in a grocery bag. They would hold hammers in grocery bags, in yellow bags, making it look like they had just, purchased something from a store or a grocery store and made it seem less threatening. Obviously, if someone's walking behind you holding a hammer, you're going to be like, WTF, and you're going to be suspicious. As they walked faster, they began to pass Ylchenko, and Igor spun around and hit her in the side of the head. He continued beating her head in with a hammer until her death. Ekaterina's body was found in the street by her mother the next morning around 5 a.m. Not even an hour later, the two men were walking through the town, and then they spotted a homeless man, Roman Totarovich, sleeping on a park bench. They again used the same hammer, beating his head and face so badly that it took days for him to be identified. On July 1st, an additional 2 victims, both bludgeoned to death, were found in the streets of a nearby village. One had her eyes completely gouged out, and she was completely unrecognizable from the mutilation. 5 days later, on July 6th, that brought 3 additional murders. One man, a recent army recruit, was bludgeoned to death while walking home from a nightclub. Again, his mother found his lifeless body on the steps to their apartment building. Less than a block away, just minutes later, a female security guard was murdered while standing at her post. The last murder of the evening was Valentina Hanza. And no, there's no relation there to Alexander Hanza from this group. She was a mother of 3 and sole caretaker to a disabled husband. She too was murdered outside of her building. Less than 12 hours later, Igor and Viktor began to stalk 2 young boys, and they decided to follow it through to the end. They followed them to a lake in a nearby city. They attacked one boy, they ran up on them, they attacked one boy, horrifically mutilating him. And although they did attack the other, he was severely injured, but he still managed to escape. He immediately went to the local police department to report what had happened, but sadly, the police didn't believe his story about being attacked by 2 men, and instead brutally beat him, thinking that he killed his friend and he was reporting it to cover it up. And then we have the case that made headlines around the world. 5 days later, on July 12th, 48-year-old Sergei Yatzenko, an elderly man who had just beaten cancer, was taking a motorcycle ride and running errands. And this particular victim is the reason why this case is so notorious. This particular murder is what is shown on the infamous online video, 3 Guys, 1 Hammer. And Sergei Yatzenko's backstory is heartbreaking. He had actually cheated death twice before his encounter with the 2 men, with Igor and Viktor. As a full-time farm worker in the early 1990s, while working on a farm, he had accidentally lost control of a tractor that he had been plowing a field with, and the tractor ended up turning towards a pond. And instead of leaving it, the tractor to run off into the pond, he actually jumped into the water to try to save it and get it back, but he actually ended up getting pinned underneath it in the water, and he drowned. Like, clinically, he was dead. Other workers jumped in to save him, and they were able to bring him out. Rescuers ended up resuscitating him, and he spent some time in the hospital before running back and going back to his family. He lived through it, which is absolutely crazy. He literally clinically died and then was resuscitated. And after this...
Hey employers, ready to cover more and save more? When you bundle United Healthcare Medical with our life, disability, dental, and or vision, your medical plan costs may drop. Plus, you'll be offering more of the benefits employees want. For more details, visit uhc.com/bundled. Minimum participation requirements may apply for bundling programs. Benefits and programs may not be available in all states or for all group sizes. Components subject to change. Insurance coverage provided by or through United Healthcare Insurance Company or its affiliates. Administrative services provided by United Healthcare Services, Inc. Health plan coverage provided by or through Optimum Choice, Inc. or United Healthcare of the Mid-Atlantic, Inc.
Hey guys, it's Robin, and I'm here to give you the solution to your primary life problem, especially in the upcoming months: your schedule. If you're like me, you don't have time to meal plan, shop, meal prep, and cook. So why not take some of the stress off? Try HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Not only do you get fresh meat and produce, HelloFresh is 30% cheaper than shopping at your local grocery store, and you skip the checkout lines entirely. And HelloFresh's streamlined supply chain means that produce gets to you faster and fresher than the grocery store. Is one day particularly hectic for you? Try their quick and easy meals. We have 15 to 20-minute dinners, breakfast on the go, and 10-minute lunches. Perfect for your busy schedule, and I particularly like the breakfast on the go. I honestly would not eat breakfast without it. And almost all of their meals puts a warm, delicious meal on your table in 30 minutes or less. You are fully in charge of your customizable box every single time you order. And my favorite part is that not only does HelloFresh give back to the community by donating millions of meals to charities each year, it's also the first carbon neutral meal kit, offsetting 100% of carbon emissions. So go to HelloFresh.com/WSTD14 and use code WSTD14 for up to 14 free meals, including free shipping. Again, that's HelloFresh.com/WSTD14 and use code WSTD14 for up to 14 free meals, including free shipping. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. This experience, it changed him. Like, he went back to his family with renewed devotion. And with his wife, Ludmila, he had 2 sons. His sons eventually got married, and Sergei would constantly talk about his sons and daughters-in-law, especially when they had his grandchildren. He would frequently babysit, he would constantly be visiting, and then he taught them how to change diapers, swaddle babies. Unfortunately, shortly thereafter, he began to experience a constant cough and some minor throat pain. It was discovered that Sergei had throat cancer. So he underwent an operation and it was successfully removed. But he was left unable to speak in a voice above a whisper and would gasp for breath if he spoke too many words at one time. Sergei ended up losing his job because of the health complications, but immediately began to devote his time to his 4 rescued stray street dogs, as well as the care for his mother, who was also battling cancer, and she was unable to walk. He would assist her with groceries, taking her to medical appointments, while he and his wife, Ludmila, did odd jobs to pay the bills. I mean, he was absolutely beloved by his community, and he would fix someone's car for free. He would help out. He would let people, like, literally give them money. Like, he was known as just an absolute hero to his community. On July 12th, Sergei told his wife and mother that he needed to go get gas for his motorcycle and also wanted to see his grandsons while he was away. He left the house on his motorbike and made his way to the local highway. At some point, he changed over to a pedal bike, like a regular bicycle, although the reasoning behind that was unclear. His route in order to get to the highway would carry him through a heavily wooded back road. And what happens next is completely caught on video. Igor Suprunyuk and Viktor Sayenko decided that they were out searching for a victim. So they determined that this heavily wooded back road would be the perfect place to find one. So they started camping out in the middle of the woods beside the road and decided to mutually agree on a victim, and then they would attack them. Igor stood in the middle of the road and waited, and then they unfortunately saw Sergei Yatzenko pedaling down the road. As Sergei drove by, and what happens next is basically where the video begins. As Sergei pedals by, Igor runs up to him and hits him on the side of the head with a hammer that is being held in a yellow trash bag. Igor and Viktor then drag him into the forest. Viktor records as Igor strikes Sergei repeatedly in the head, face, and eyes. And very quickly, Sergei's face is past the point of recognition. Viktor was holding a camcorder and recorded every single moment of this attack in up-close detail, all while taunting Sergei for not being able to speak. Igor says, quote, hold on, don't hit him, watch him. And then on cue, Viktor zooms way up into Sergei's bloodied face. It's just an unrecognizable shape, broken bones, exposed brain, and scattered teeth. All you can hear in the video is Sergei drowning on his own blood while trying to breathe. And at one point, he actually raises his arms up in like an unheard plea. Igor then continues to repeatedly hit Sergei in the head and eyes with a hammer. Viktor then gives Igor the camera, pulls out a screwdriver, and gouges out Sergei's eyes. He then begins to stab him repeatedly in the stomach. Still, Sergei was alive. And the camera actually picks up Igor and Viktor laughing in amazement that the man that they had just brutally attacked was still alive and breathing, although entirely unrecognizable. Igor laughs, "What the fuck? He's still alive? He's still moving after I ripped his intestines." "Kill him already," Viktor said. The last words that Sergei Yatzenko heard was Igor asking him, "What a fucking day for you, huh?" Viktor and Igor then cleaned the hammer and screwdriver, and the following conversation was caught on camera. Igor, "This time was awesome, yeah?" Viktor, laughing, replied, "I don't know how he kept alive. I had the screwdriver like this as I stabbed him. I could feel his brain." That night, Sergei's wife Lyudmila was absolutely beside herself. She knew that her sweet husband had not left her, just gotten up, run away, or left the family. Considering his health problems, she was worried that he had gotten into an accident or had a medical emergency. Unfortunately, Ukrainian law dictates that one must wait 72 hours to file a missing persons report. So she immediately made flyers and posters with her husband's photo and posted them around town the very next day. Sergei's body was found 4 days later in the woods by a man who had seen one of Lyudmila's posters and recalled an odd abandoned bicycle on that remote wooded back road. So what was their MO? Every single murder that Igor and Viktor committed was committed in the same fashion. One of them would hide a hammer, which was the usual tool. Occasionally it was a metal crowbar, and they would hide it under their shirt or in a yellow bag. They would collectively pick a victim, and as they passed them on the street, they would just attack at random using the element of surprise. They would even attack in broad daylight. They would primarily aim for their face or head, and then try to make them as unrecognizable as possible. Almost every victim had their eyes gouged out while they were still alive, and occasionally they would use a screwdriver to do that. One of the worst cases was that of a pregnant woman. They struck her with a hammer in order to incapacitate her, and then proceeded to mutilate her stomach, opened her up, and then they cut the fetus from the womb and proceeded to mutilate it before gouging out her eyes and eventually killing her. What is so insane is that an active investigation into these murders didn't start until July 7th, after 8 victims were found. 8. In this small Ukrainian village. Remember the boy who escaped the attack at the lake with his friends? Well, again, the local cops believe that he killed his friend, and they beat him horribly in order to obtain a confession. Well, that beating left him permanently disabled, and it took months for them to believe that he wasn't the one responsible. On July 14th, and this is all after Sergei's murder, on July 14th, 45-year-old Natalia Marmichuk was riding her moped through town when Viktor and Igor again rushed out of the woods, knocked her down, and violently bludgeoned her to death. They then got on a scooter and sped off. And what's interesting is that dozens of people actually witnessed this attack. The men weren't even wearing disguises. 2 young boys were playing in a tent just 2 feet from where Marmichuk was murdered. They were able to give the police incredible physical descriptions that matched the one given by the lone survivor of the previous lake attack. The police made no public statement on the attacks whatsoever. They did not publish sketches, details, or even warn the city that there was a pair of serial killers on the loose. They just quietly and silently investigated. After realizing that some of the victims had their valuables stolen, they started watching local and neighboring pawn shops. They were quickly able to identify and arrest Alexandra Hanza, Viktor Sayenko, and Igor Suprunyuk. After tracing a phone that was stolen from one of the victims, the police finally made a hit. 2 of the men had gone to a local pawn shop to sell it, and as the phone was turned on, it notified the police of its location. They swarmed the pawn shop and arrested Sayenko and Suprunyuk. Hanza would later be arrested at home while in the process of trying to flush other various stolen items down his toilet. The 3 men were tried together, and the photos of the trial are notorious. They show them defiantly sitting in a cage, sometimes laughing, sometimes appearing scared, and they were collectively charged with involvement in 29 separate incidents, 21 murders, and 8 additional attacks. Suprunyuk was charged in 27 of the cases, including 21 counts of capital murder, 8 armed robberies, and 1 count of animal cruelty. Sayenko was charged with 25 instances, including 18 murders, 5 robberies, and 1 count of animal cruelty. Hanza was charged with 2 counts of armed robbery. Suprunyuk immediately confessed and pleaded guilty, but then he recanted and pled not guilty. He was hoping for an insanity defense, but it failed. The other two pled guilty to all charges. The defense team consisted of 3 lawyers, and one was assigned to each defendant. Hanza had only participated in one robbery months before the murder spree even began, so he pled guilty and hoped for leniency. Suprunyuk surprised the court entirely because he fired his lawyer and hired his own father, who had just graduated from law school a couple months before the court date. The court proceedings for the 3 men then had an extreme delay, having to allow time for his father to get up to date with not only the evidence, but also how criminal trials work to begin with. When the trial eventually went to court, Suprunyuk's slant was clear: attack the police. Due to ineptitude and corruption, the defense was able to present a case of mistaken identity and influence. Not only had the police suspiciously started and stopped the videotape searches of the suspects' homes, they never once showed an item actively being discovered. They had also previously arrested 2 men and a woman for those series of murders. The police department denied all of this, but other police and citizens themselves were able to prove that that was a lie, that it was a complete and total cover-up, and the police, frankly, came out looking like total corrupt assholes. The defense tried to make a case that the real killers must be wealthy individuals who were capable of buying off the police, thus the wake of corruption and lies. Suprunyuk's defense even claimed that the very videos he made, narrated, and appeared on didn't show him or any of the dead victims. Sayenko's defense was that yes, he committed all of the crimes, but he only did so because he was terrified of Suprunyuk, the ringleader. He said that he had been scared for his life since 7th grade. On February 11th, 2009, the judge found Igor Suprunyuk and Viktor Sayenko guilty of premeditated murder and sentenced both to life imprisonment. Suprunyuk was found guilty of all 21 murders, while Sayenko was found guilty of 18 of them. Alexander Hanza was found guilty of robbery and sentenced to 9 years in prison, and all 3 were found guilty of animal cruelty charges. Sayenko and Suprunyuk ended up filing an appeal of their sentences in August of 2009, but at the hearing on November 24th in 2009, their sentences were upheld. Currently, modern day, Alexander Hanza is now a free man. After completing his prison term, he actually changed his name, which is currently unknown, and is out there somewhere. In terms of Viktor and Igor, no updates on them whatsoever. It is assumed that they are still serving life in prison in a Ukrainian prison. And that's it for the Dnepropetrovsk Maniacs, guys. Better known as the 3 guys, 1 hammer video that so many people have come across online. Even if you go to YouTube right now, there are thousands of results of 3 guys, 1 hammer reaction of people watching the video and recording their reaction as they watch it. It's absolutely heinous. It's absolutely disgusting. I find it to be one of the most terrible cases I have ever heard of. And I know that this episode went into some pretty graphic, gritty, and gross details. And I actually spared you guys a lot of it for not wanting to seem just, completely... And I actually spared you guys quite a lot of it. But I want to know, did you come across this video, say like in the early 2000s when it was circulating all across the internet? Have you even heard of this case before? Let me know. But that is it for today. I have another Halloween-themed episode coming for you on Tuesday. And until then, check us out at WeSawTheDevil.com. Follow us on all social media. If you're loving the show, become a patron. Join our Patreon-only Facebook group and our Discord. Come chat with us, get to know us, and help us pick future cases that we cover. Until next crime.
Sling TV, built to save you money and bring you the channels you love, including ESPN, AMC, HGTV, and more. Watch your favorite comedies, dramas, suspense thrillers, news, sports, and more for just $35 a month. And your first month is only $10. Sign up now and start streaming right away on your TV, phone, and tablet. Take control of your TV solution with Sling. It makes TV flat out better. Go to sling.com to sign up now and get your first month for just $10.
Fall is the season of gathering that brings us together with warmth and color. So whether it's a birthday, anniversary, or a special event, celebrate your friends and family with a gorgeous bouquet of roses from 1-800-Flowers.com. 1-800-Flowers makes it easy to brighten someone's day with 24 multicolored roses for just $39.99. To get 24 multicolored roses for just $39.99, Visit 1-800-Flowers.com/tune in. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/tune in.